welcome again. Good morning. Sorry for the inconvenience. So I want to talk about the distributed clouds situation that I believe I can foresee in Europe, and I believe that we are distributed by DNA, and I will explain this in this talk. And yeah, let's go in. So a bit of introduction to my person. I'm using computers since I'm 5. I have a software engineering background, and I worked in many different roles. Nowadays I'm a freelancer, so I like to be like independent. And I started using clouds, I think it was 18 years ago, and I will also show you my first experience today. So I have, my main expertise are in cloud computing, but I expanded it down to the edge meanwhile, and I'm a big believer of distributed clouds. That's why I created this talk. I also have some experience in the so-called sovereign clouds, namely Stacked, IONOS, OVH cloud, and I'm currently evaluating more. So that I'm we're doing a test bed and benchmarking with some friends I will also talk about this. Besides solutions architecture, I do consultancy, and I'm also a trainer for cloud architecture. So this is where I spend most of my time, I would say. Okay, let's start. My train of thought. So I wanted to give you a quick run through, because the topic is very extensive, and actually it was super hard for me to trim it to short amount of time. Probably I will speak even faster during the talk to get through it. So what is the talk about? It's a cloud computing in Europe, containers, Kubernetes, sovereign and distributed clouds. It's about open source, foundations and funding. It's not about bashing anyone. And it's also not about politics. I mean, with this topic, you cannot completely ignore it, but I try to keep it as least as possible. So the political situation. It's also not about advertising. So you will see some logos, something. I'm not associated with anything. It's just that said. These are my very own limited views and some of my very own opinions. And I would be very interested in yours actually. And so please reach out. So I hope you can agree with something, and if you don't agree with something, that's even better, because then I'm interested to learn from you. So this is my introduction. Let's start. So why did we first embrace the cloud? And I was thinking about cloud computing back then, and I found a very old definition from 1960s, where an MIT professor said that it should be public utility cloud computing. I found it very interesting. It's 1960. He compared it to to telephone systems, allowing multiple users to share a central mainframe computer. So that's, for me, this is actually the cloud computing. It's a pretty good definition, I would say. The other definitions are there is no cloud, it's just someone else's computer. But yeah, I think what we like is pay-as-you-go and instant scalability and the global access and no upfront invest, and this is probably what people like about. And today I want to focus more on the type of cloud, which is the on-site one, like the on-premise where you own and manage all the stuff, but also maybe the infrastructure as a service. Yes, there's PaaS, yes, there's SaaS. We can also debate if PaaS is a real type of, but yeah. So we will focus on this. So my very first cloud computing experience, it was an IaaS experience, I would say. It was like AWS in 2008, and I was super amazed being able to start a virtual machine and not waiting for it, where traditional hosters gave you only a subset, maybe FTP access, or you had to wait for something. So here in 2008, you could just click and use the API. So I used the EC2, and I also used the S3. Back in 2008, I was working for photo community, which is a photographer portal, and we offloaded our very own servers to the S3 object storage, which existed already then. So that was a really nice, fascinating experience. I really enjoyed it, and I still can remember it very well. And so AWS started with it, and others followed. And yeah, we'll focus here, of course, on the obvious three. So Google Cloud was a bit later, not yet as prominent, because for my personal view, it got visible way later. But in 2008, they launched App Engine. In 2010, Microsoft Azure followed, And the reason to do this, I will show you also in a bit. So they got bigger and they got better, and I think this is what we really all enjoyed from working with them, and we built great things there, right? So and it was pretty good actually, and I think they are still pretty good from many aspects. But there was also other issues with cloud computing, right? Like cloud costs. So I spent quite some time contributing to the FinOps Foundation, optimizing costs for clients, for platforms, and so on. And this probably is a big pain. Who of you ever got a bill that you didn't like? Can you raise your hand? Okay. So, and have you ever got a phone call from your boss on the beginning of the month because of the cloud costs invoice? Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, okay, I feel you. So this is what I also had. Okay, overall is pretty good and pretty amazing, I would say, the experience that we had. And meanwhile, cloud computing, cloud as their own platform, they gave you everything, compute, network storage, programmatically, self-service, all these things. But there was another, I would say, thing happening, which was the introduction of containers with Docker. And I think with Docker something formed up, which ended in the 1.0 release of Kubernetes in 2015. There were some industry partners that joined initially, but obviously it was Google, and you could also imagine that it might be some very strategic move here to bring a container orchestration platform in open source to the world, to give the world something, but also to maybe disrupt it a bit. And it was a subset of Borg, which is the main orchestrator at Google. And I think Google, what they did was very, very smart, because they picked the brains of the whole world that contributed to Kubernetes, one of the most active open source projects ever, and still. Also Linux kernel is one of the top ones. And they backported the good things back to Borg from there. I think it was super smart, but also they gave us something really nice and matured it over the years. And they invested there were funds of 9 million. I found a reference in for hardening and making Kubernetes production ready. And I think it was super hard work. And in September 2015, Google founded the Cloud Native Computing Foundation, among some others. So, and I think this was also a very interesting move, because the foundation is to sustain open source in the long run. So it's like being a foundation has several advantages, and I think it was a really smart and good move also to found this. And the definition, I want to highlight only a few things here, which we see later in the presentation. It's like develop, build, and deploy workloads in computing environments, and that I found very interesting, CNCF, public, private, hybrid cloud. Yeah, so it was originally made for multiple environments. So, and if you look at the bottom, it's also, yes, they're mentioning container service mesh. I disagree, you don't necessarily need it from my point of view, but immutable infrastructure, that's also interesting, and declarative APIs. I think this is like we will also look at some of these aspects of declarative APIs, looking at distributed clouds. Okay, so, I will skip that in the rest of time. So the CNCF landscape grew and grew and grew even more, and we all, like many, got confused of it, right? So, and some even got mad about it, but actually we learned to love Kubernetes in the cloud. And from my point of view, there are two reasons. It brought us a high level of standardization, how to do things, like how to orchestrate. And the reason number two is you could extend it. It was not closed in a sense that you can write custom resource definitions and custom resource, and you extend the API. And that was incredibly powerful. But for the hyperscalers, I would say, except Google, because they naturally offered it very early on, AWS, they were the latest adapters of managed Kubernetes, because it was also for them to restart. Kubernetes is a platform to build platforms. Installing Kubernetes in a cloud is installing a platform, just the bootstrapped empty one, like orchestrated Kubernetes, in a cloud platform. And probably you've seen all the efforts that we had to integrate the networking, the storage into the cloud providers, and they never even wanted it. The cloud providers were already happy. Microsoft and AWS, what they offered. It was like full and complete, but yet quite so. And we built all great things there, right? With Kubernetes, in clouds, natively, and that was nothing wrong about it, yeah. But over the years, and this is now the smallest political part, is the hyperscalers reputation got constantly worse, and there are many reasons. And I think it's worth its own talk. You can explore there, and you have your own perspectives. And maybe you're in the same bubble like I am. You get all these LinkedIn AI-generated pictures of people, and that's talking about like Trump or something. And I don't like it. But yeah, this is my opinion. This narrative. But I think we should have another one. And we also face some issues in open source. It was not only like we are dependent on public clouds and this is evil. It was also like the issues in open source. I mean, like we had rag pulls. Yeah, we have maintainer burnouts. So like we have license change, which is rag pull, effectively like think of the HashiCorp story, or nuts moved even out of the CNCF, right? So they took it out so the foundation could preserve it, because you give your intellectual property foundation. This is the value of a foundation. Yeah, so, and my thinking is maybe Europe also missed some opportunities, yeah, to build their own tech and grow their own, open source, I would say, and other projects, and now we want to catch up. And I think this is a way more logical explanation of what's happening, and this led, from my personal view, to this digital sovereignty movement. And I don't know, digital sovereignty is pretty overloaded, and I don't know if you can hear it anymore, but it's even hard to write, right? Sovereignty, write it in German, wow, this is super complicated with and something, and write it in English. So we should make a challenge out of it. I don't know, to type it, I don't know. It's, I mistyped it all the time. Still, I'm writing it a lot. Anyway, so also this digital sovereignty was always hard for me to quantify and qualify, yeah. But there were like progress. There's an official cloud sovereignty framework what was like released in October by the European Commission, and we will take a quick look on it. So the objectives, I will not go through it, just to give you a glimpse. Maybe you know it, maybe not, but at least now you know that it exists. So there are like several objectives, effectively like 8, and I only want to highlight 2. The operational sovereignty, which is about to run, support, and evolve a technology independently of foreign control. I think that's perfectly what we are talking about today and what we have in mind. And the other one is the technology sovereignty, and this I think is also a great fit. This is the degree of openness, open source, transparency, open source, and independence, maybe then multi-vendor and probably many maintainers, independence of in the underlying technology stack. This is a bit the agnostic one we will also look at. Then big players like Schwarz Digits, they released the ES3 program, the European Sovereign Stack Standard, which builds upon the European Commission framework, and it also adds another dimension, which is artificial intelligence as a 9th dimension. So they had a framework and also and proactive, or I'd say like you can operationalize it a bit more. And there's another project I want to highlight, which is pretty new, which is the WAF++, is the independent, well-architected framework, and they have, you can see it here, they have a sovereign pillar. And you can see here, I think a bit bigger, yes. They have also some other, what does sovereign cloud mean? So there's a lot of definitions and help, and just check it out, what fits for you, take what you need. And yes, the European Commission gave us something official, and I think it makes sense. And for me, it's now kind of defined, but of course there are so many dimensions, you need to apply them, how applicable it is in your context you are working, I would say. Okay, so what do we do now about the digital sovereignty? And my thinking is we should build, and this is my new narrative, like distributed or cloud technology from Europe for and everyone else. So I completely dislike the statings that we need to be against US or against China. I think it's stupid. Why can't we just invent stuff for us and invite everyone else? And also respect maybe the data privacy better and show that it can happen. Does it slow down innovation? Yeah, sure. But if we manage to get it really done with all these Cloud Act, Data Act, AI Act, it's hard stuff. There's more, right? NIS2, NIS2, DORA, Cyber Resilience Act, man, this is a lot of shit. And it will slow us down in the first place. But let's see in 5 years where we are then in the world. I think we will have the best position. Ooh, 5 minutes. Okay, I see two approaches. The EU hyperscalers and the distributed cloud approach to this. Let's talk about approach number one. I will speed up, sorry for this, but yeah, we lost some minutes. So we have some bigger players. This is just like a small subset, and you will have your very own. I couldn't take the time to explore, but I'm super curious what Switzerland has in that space, and that's why I'm also here. And I will attend many tracks here and probably hear and learn how you see it and what you all have. Yeah. So, but looking back, what are the prerequisites to build hyperscaler, right? AWS, this is a story that I know that I'm telling all the time. They rented spare capacity, they reserved for Black Friday as pay as you go. That is how they invented their very own cloud computing. This is a story I know. I don't know if you know another one. Sounds very logical actually. So it also sounds very logical that Google used their own data centers and their own network that they had for search and advertising and offered service on top of it. Why not? Spare capacity is just smart, right? Economically, it's like renting it out, but they were late. And I think they were also like a bit pushed by AWS or Amazon at that time. Microsoft did the same. 2010, they had like Bing, Hotmail, MSN, game servers. I found some references there, but they already had. So they had also like services and data centers. They used their spare capacity and rented it. Yeah. So those and others, they are on it. Building kind of EU hyperscale because they have the spare capacity, right? Not everyone can build this up, but there are also few challenges. Yeah, so sovereign clouds are behind compared to as hyperscaler from a tech standpoint. There are multiple reasons for that. So we are benchmarking it. I'm working with a company. It's a volunteer, non-paid one, benchmarking EU clouds. This is how you see how we rate it with this OVH and more. We benchmark up to 30 over time. You can check it out. I think it's interesting and to get an idea where the sovereign clouds are. And the challenge number 2 is to catch up is not enough. So they need to get ahead. And I think this is a big challenge to have. Senior talents are rare. They use OpenStack. Nothing wrong with OpenStack, but operating OpenStack in each and every environment, I don't know. Okay, so we are a continent of small, medium-sized enterprises, and I think that is very natural because we have 50 countries with 24 official languages, and there are way more. Right? So I just took the official ones, and that's why I believe the distributed by DNA comes from our culture, from Europe, from the continent. And probably this validates also another approach, which is the distributed cloud approach. And there's IPCEI, it's a terrible name, but it's like the important project of common European interest. Because it is like, they have several programs or initiatives, next generation cloud infrastructure, which is to build a EU-wide multi-provider cloud to edge. And because the name was so hard to spell, I believe they created the initiative ORA, way easier to pronounce, right, and to remember, which is about the cloud edge continuum. So moving workloads or having like an interoperability layer across from edge to from the right, even up to hyperscalers and maybe your own cloud providers, could be also sovereign clouds. So this was a mission statement. And so people ask, is it something like GaiaX? Because it sounds like we can discuss it. I need to really speed up, sorry, but it's not. Yeah, so it's similar, but they try to get over the issues that GaiaX had. So it's interoperability, and they gave 1 or 2 billion for 7 member states for Cloud Edge Continuum projects, open source funding. So it's still active. It ends this year. And what happened? So yeah, many countries applied. Probably not all were aware that this exists. I think this is an issue by itself. But 107 OSS projects got 3 years of funding. Actually, it was 118, because 13 went to a new foundation, which is the NeoNephos Foundation, which was launched in 2025 on KubeCon London. And it's like cloud native sovereign, and there's also the sovereign cloud stack. And how does it compare? So sovereign cloud stack is mostly not based, but focused on OpenStack, while The NeoNephos has a different statement. It aims for Kubernetes for edge computing, Kubernetes for private clouds, Kubernetes for data centers. And this is all possible. With OpenStack, it's not possible. You cannot run OpenStack on a single board computer, but you can run Kubernetes on single board computers. And so the goal is to build these building blocks for the cloud edge continuum. There's a steady number of EU members, but we need more. So it's pretty much initiated in Germany, and we really need the diverse set. Yeah, so ideally all member states join there. That would be fantastic. Not member states, the regional one, all European. I don't think we should create these artificial borders. Anyway, so another foundation, why not CNCF? It's very simple. If it's probably you know it in Switzerland as well, public money, public code. And if you fund something in open source, it should be hosted and governed and also be. So that's why they created the NeoNephos Foundation in Linux Foundation Europe. So made it very close to the CNCF. I think this is very important to understand because people criticize it a lot. Hey, why do we need another foundation? It took so much time to build up CNCF. Why start over? True. But yeah, they also gave us a reference architecture back then, and there are some projects I want to highlight, which is a platform mesh. So it's like building the Kubernetes API and resource model, interoperability across providers and cloud providers. I think it's a pretty exciting project. It's very ambitious. It's super complicated to get this done, standard across. But if we get this, I think it's super interesting. So the NeoNephos is pretty aligned with the IPCEI goals. There are other initiatives, which is the SECA, like the IONOS. They declared also declarative programming interface for cloud infrastructure. And I need to skip this for a moment. It's coming from Eurostack. So Eurostack is a holistic view on digital sovereignty, and it promotes a Europe first mindset. Oh dear. Okay. Can we extend it by the time that we lost in the beginning? Okay, great. Okay, thanks. And there are even more initiatives around. IPCEI started IPCEI-AI very soon. In 2027, again, 3 years of funding happens to AI, open source, foundational models, for example, development, the whole AI stack, training, inferencing services, and open source software around this. And IPCEI-CIS is a compute infrastructure continuum, so this means hardware interoperability and hardware independence, because we also need to think of, do we always want to depend only on NVIDIA and they can raise the price? We maybe should also invest in other chips, so there's like research and development happening, so very much exciting. What you see here is the European Commission and government is trying to establish full circle of digital sovereignty, if you want. And this will also help our economy. It will create new jobs. It will be very interesting. But as we saw several initiatives, I think there's some overlap. But there's one thing in common, which I found, which is the open source stuff. And what I found also very good is that we see that Europe is taking it seriously and they're investing heavily in open source. And as we saw earlier, or you know it from the daily work, we have problems with maintainer burnouts and all the issues here. Europe actually is addressing it. So you can get money for open source many, many years. And we can also sustain it in a foundation. You can get this money, but maybe you can also convince where you work, because I'm pretty sure 100% here are open source adapters somehow. Are you all contributors? Not sure. So I think we should just think of giving something back. And there are many, many ways. You can do lectures, trainings. You don't have to write code. You can update documentation. You can do tons of things. Contributions are very, very diverse, and you can do a lot of stuff. Because open source needs community, like people, like you. So think about it. Where should you go? I cannot tell you. You have to find your way. Go check it out. What feels like good, talk to them, check the projects, the initiatives. Don't give any pointers. You can ask me personally, but then I need to understand where you're coming from, what's interesting to you, and so on. It's a very personal thing, I would say. You cannot just say, go there, and this is good. Open source is good. They all do open source. So go there. So from my point of view, it doesn't matter that much where you go and contribute. It's more important that you take the chance and you decide and you actually do it. Yeah. So it's like, yes, we are all too busy, but if you can get money from it, maybe it makes it easier for you. So from my point of view, we can be excited about it. And this is a very good situation where we are heading to. And this is why you should get engaged and involved. And this is why I think, like, yeah, we are distributed by DNA, and all this is currently initiated from Europe, but we should build it together. And yeah, maybe it's built by you, and it's very important, it's for everyone. And we must never forget, like real clouds, open source has no borders, right? Not within Europe and not in the world. Thank you.